I've gotten so many requests to talk about the LGBTQ topic, so here it is. I'm going to address it in two different ways. First of all, in terms of religion, which is going to be very brief. And second of all, is actually through a sociological perspective, which I haven't really seen discussed anywhere, but it came up in some of my coursework and it was a very interesting angle, and I wanted to share that with you because that's where my expertise is. First of all, in terms of Islam, we know that it's explicitly not allowed. This is something that we blindly follow, and it begs the question, why are you a Muslim? As parents, I want you to stop and think about that. That question comes up in parenting. Why are we Muslims? Why do we do certain things? Why do we believe in certain things? How do we know that the Quran is real? How do we know that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was teaching us the right things? This is not a hypothetical question. This is a real question. When my children come to me or have come to me and ask me, why are we Muslim? In a very innocent, childlike way, part of conversation when we talk about morality, I did have an answer for that. Do you have an answer for that? Each of us are going to have our own answers, and it's really something to stop and think about before we get into these discussions of morality with our children. I guess I'm already running out of time, so the sociological aspect is going to be part 2, inshallah. Does it even make a difference to you if you identify as a heterosexual? Does it affect your family? Does it affect your children? Actually, yes, it does. When we compare societies that accept homosexuality as a societal norm, they actually have a much narrower acceptance of behaviors. So within genders, men with men, women with women. And for example, in America, you'll never see two men holding hands walking down the street together, heterosexual men. But if you look at Islamic countries, for example, where homosexuality is not an acceptable norm societally, you will see two men holding hands together, heterosexual men, and no one's going to question their sexuality because heterosexuality is actually the assumed. There is no option for homosexuality. So actually, interestingly enough, homosexuality actually restricts the acceptable range of behavior for within each gender group, so men with men and women with women. There are societal implications to homosexuality, so it does affect you even though you identify as a heterosexual. So in part 1 of this LGBTQ series, I talked about how we do not believe in homosexuality as Muslims. But what I find myself wondering is why it's such a debate for the reasoning behind why we don't agree with the LGBTQ movement. We never ask why or if we're supposed to pray 5 times a day, fast in Ramadan. So how come this LGBTQ movement has us wondering, why does it have us so confused? In part 3 of the LGBTQ series, I talked about how homosexuality is not part of the Islamic guidelines that Allah has given for Muslims, the same as us not eating pork or drinking alcohol. I think part of the difficulty that parents have in addressing LGBTQIA is that it's a package of many different, not even several, many different terminologies related to sexual orientation. So let's unpack it, because actually there are 2 aspects of LGBTQIA which Muslims accept, which we don't have a problem with, and one that we actually protect. LGB. They all have to do with some component or either completely or partially to do with homosexuality. L stands for lesbian, G stands for gay, and B stands for bisexual. T stands for several different things. Just keeping in mind that terminology and meanings of these different words do evolve a little bit over the years, so just to keep that in mind. Similarly for Q. Now, I and A are the ones that there is no issue Islamically with either of these. A for obvious reasons, and I stands for intersex. Intersex is the one that's protected by Islam because it's considered the same just like any other biological or genetic abnormality, any congenital issue. Intersex would fall in that category. And we shouldn't feel like just because we have a Muslim identity that we're immune to the topic of homosexuality or LGBTQ. And this is not only just in this country. I'm currently in America, so this is not just us Western countries, it's also affecting our home countries overseas. Just yesterday, Pakistan passed a bill that was about homosexuality and LGBTQ movement. It's, you know, like the hadith says that the end of times, you know, holding on to your faith is going to be like holding on to a burning coal in your hands. It's going to be very difficult, and this fitna is very real and it's everywhere. If you have school-age children, this message is for you. Please talk to your children about LGBTQ and homosexuality before they hear about it in schools. As the saying goes, if you believe in nothing, you'll fall for anything. And you would be really shocked to find out how early our children are being introduced to this fitna. These topics come up even as early as preschool. And yes, you can talk about these topics at home with your 4-year-old and 5-year-old in developmentally appropriate ways. There are ways to do that. For example, talking about the concept of Allah as our creator, that he makes no mistakes, and that there are only 2 genders, and that we should be proud of who we are, the way that Allah has created us, and that we don't want to try to change that. We should be happy and feel blessed with what Allah has given us and the way that he has made us. This message is also really important for our older children, but it does become a lot more nuanced. Older children do wonder about being held accountable for passing thoughts and what's the difference between our thoughts and our actions. I have several videos on this. You can scroll down on my profile and find those videos. And if there are any other topics that you'd like to hear about on this, branching out of this topic of LGBTQ and homosexuality, just drop it in the comments below, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. I've gotten lots of questions like this, so I have a workshop coming up for parents next week, inshallah, Monday and Thursday. You can get the registration links in my bio. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I would be happy to DM you the registration link as well. This is a really important topic. I'm going to be talking about different ways that you can introduce the topic to little ones, questions that your teenagers might approach you with, a lot of different background knowledge that you might want to have before you broach the subject with your children. So, and bring any questions that you have as well, because there will be Q&A at the end as well, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Pass, pass, pass. Smash.